Hey guys, happy Sunday to you all. I've had a weird day today looking at marathons and 24-hour motorbike races and catching up on all sorts of stuff, including beers from the London Beer 52 box, the TFL box. And let me open it because this is another one from Bermondsey, the Bermondsey Mile indeed. So it's part of it's here, well, about here, and it's a collaboration which is very difficult to see on this map. But don't panic because I have this to show you, dear viewer. So the beer we are doing today is this one, the Honey Dunkel, and it's a collaboration between Gosnells and Anspach Hobday, which are both in the Bermondsey Mile. It's a Honey Dunkel, so it's a dark lager basically. And it says brew flavors of chocolate, bread crust, and caramel. A slight sweetness on the finish at 4.4% on the ABV. And once again, I love this. This is such a nice touch. Please keep this thing going, Beer 52. Makes a lot of people happy, including me. Okay, here is the can of beer. So, Gosnells at the top, Anspach Hobday at the bottom, and it's obviously a Bermondsey collaboration. And Gosnells do a lot of things with honey. Not usually beer, but I think I've had some beer from them before. And if we look here, it says brewed and canned for Gosnells of London in the EU and imported back again. This has to stop. This really does has to stop. Water, malted barley, hops, yeast, and honey. You got gluten. You got all that kind of stuff. It even says something about the Surgeon General, and that's not an English thing. So I don't know why you're putting that on our label unless you're shipping this stuff to America. Yeah, I like the actual can. I think that is quite cool. And there's lots of information. I'm not going to go through all the information because I want to drink the beer. But it says all that dark logo stuff. Gosnells, yeah, blah blah blah. There you go. Take a screenshot of that if you want to read that, dear viewer. But basically, two alcohol producers within a mile of each other in London. But oh no, this gets brewed in the EU. I cannot believe it. It's really messing with my head. But I've had my rant yesterday, so I'm not going to do the same again today. Going to pressure test this a bit. Ooh, this one's quite a lively one, but it is a lager, so you know, lager on a Sunday. I'm not surprised. But yeah, I'm bitterly disappointed that Beer 52 have pulled such an obscene fast one. And I wonder how many people apart from me have noticed this thing. Because all the things on the Beer 52 website, as usual, they kind of basically suck each other's cocks in the nicest way possible. Ooh, that's really nice. But they don't often dispute anything from Beer 52, whereas I feel like I'm one of the only people that is doing that. So look at that. That's a ridiculous head. Right, if I put that over on this side, I can do one of these things today, which is cool. Maybe I'll lean that way. Look at that obscene head. Something like that. We'll see how that turns out. And as usual, dear viewer, that will be the front of this this video. Look at that. That looks absolutely proper. I don't know if you can see because of the reflection but that is actually quite clear. I would call it looks quite dark on camera, but that's kind of like a hazelnut kind of thing, a tawny owl colour, if you like. Looks like a proper beer. Wow, very much lager aroma, yeasty kind of aroma, maybe with a hint of kind of lemon. There's a little bit of floralness to it. Obviously, quite a high amount of carbon dioxide, but it is fading fast. You'll see. We were at 3 fingers, and we're probably under 2 fingers now. So I better get cracking drinking this beer. Get cracking with necking. I want to see if you can, if it will focus on there. Not really, but there is a mild, a light carbonation to this beer, which is nice to see. Cheers and beers, guys. Let's see what we get. I'm going to relax on Sunday. It's not a strong beer, as I say, 4 and a bit, 4.5, 4.4 actually. I should be more precise on my data, but I'm going to say 4.5. Cheers and beers. Nice carbonation, nice lager kind of bitterness, but then comes through a nice balanced kind of sweetness. I mean, I'd still say this is on the bitter side. It's not a sweet beer, but it has got a bit of sweetness in there, and you can tell this honey is like had some sort of flowers and stuff. It's not a manuka honey or some crazy honey like that, but you can tell sort of wildflowers have been in this one. And the breadiness is there too, which is always nice to see. From the dark malts, let's see if I can work out. I'm just looking at the Beer 52 data, and should I do this? I don't know. Hallertau, Hersbrucker, and Tettenang. So nice German hops in there, because it's a lager, obviously, because it's a Dunkel. And what have we got in here? We've got dark Munich and some chocolate malt in there, which is no surprise at all. That huge head left a nice line there, but underneath it's kind of all gone a bit Pete Tong, hasn't it? It's all sort of dribbled down the side of the glass. There is a little bit of sort of twanging in there. You know, we all like our twangers. And by that I mean it's kind of a little bit homebrew like. And I know that Dunkel as a style is a crossover between, I mean, it should be a dark lager, and that's kind of what it tastes a bit like, but it is a dark beer. And sometimes dark beers, especially if they're a bit lighter, they have sort of weird flavours coming from the malts. I think that's what's happened to this one. The honey, though, is really nice. The weird thing is with honey, and when I used to do home brewing, haven't home brewed. Actually, I did a brew last year, but I don't brew like every week like I used to. And yeah, when you use honey, you've got to be a little bit careful, because honey tends to dry out a beer, and it goes super dry if you're doing something like a gruit or something. So you either go quite high and intend the yeast to die off at some point, or you actively pasteurize, or do something. Heat sometimes works to kill off the yeast and leave it a little bit sweet. It's a hard trick to do, but yeah, I think they've done it quite well here. There's still a little bit of sweetness there, and the weird thing is the ABV is quite low, so perhaps they've backwatered it a little bit. I don't know. There's a bit of sweetness on your lips actually up front. There's like a hint of kind of licorice or something like that as well. That kind of sweet, spice sweet, as opposed to actual sugar sweetness, if that makes sense. And yeah, like I say, there's this sweetness that's around the tongue. So I'm sure this is quite a sweet beer. But the bitterness of the hops has made it so it's quite nicely balanced. The breadiness and things like that just remind me of Germany, and I've been there a few times. Pardon me. And I first think that I drank Dunkel beer, and also Altbier, which is fantastic beer, very underrated and difficult to get hold of. But yeah, sorry, the Dunkel style I had in the Black Forest region, so down in the south of Germany, which I think is more or less where it's traditionally made. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I was in a place called La Roche, which is right down in the south. I think it's a bit more south than Munich, so it's just before you cross over the mountains and that kind of. It's quite mountainous, and it's almost a bit like Austria. That kind of very similar type thing. It's not very German. They're really chilled out actually there. But that's where I first fell in love with Dunkel beers. And when I was like, what? It's a dark beer, but it's a lager as well. This is back in the 90s when lager. If you remember that from Underworld. I do. It's in Train Spotting, if you've seen that movie, the original one, not the weird remake one. Everyone was into lager, apart from me, who like bitter. Going to Germany and thinking, oh man, it's only going to be lager, and finding out that Germany has got so many styles, nuts. It really opened my eyes as a sort of 20-year-old, or however old I was back in those days, 18, 19, 20, 21, something like that. Oh. Yeah, it's quite complex. It's interesting because using a lager is hard to make well because it's really simple and it tastes simple, whereas a Dunkel has got loads of different flavors because of the darker malts and kind of biscuitiness, maybe a touch of like fruity kind of thing. But then you add honey in as well, gives it that extra layer as well. So it keeps you guessing a bit. But I'm liking this. The only thing I don't like is the fact that it was made in the EU, and it's supposed to be 2 London producers, it just blows my mind. I think a lot of people in Bermondsey, in the Bermondsey Mile, because things have changed. There's not so many. I mean, there's still enough to get drunk on the Bermondsey Mile, but it used to be over 20, I think, places you could go to within a mile, or at least within London Bridge Station to coming all the way down. And nowadays, I think it's under 20. I think about 16, 17, something like that. Still quite a high number, especially if you have a pint in each. 17 pints? My God. I've only done that once or twice in my whole life. Could probably do it in halves, though. Yes, but anyway, fantastic place to go. But I wonder how many of those bars and places don't actually brew their beers there. They have them imported from all over, which kind of, for me, destroys the mystique, really. But alas, still a good place to go. This has been Unclejona, cheering you all up on Sunday. I know most of you have to go to work, including me. I'm back at work tomorrow. But don't panic, because I will return for another beer review real soon.